Tapu Lele GX with 1 energy on it, if we see just a Metagross GX and an energy card, that Vespiquen will easily be knocked out on the following turn. But you pretty much expect that with the Vespiquen deck. You're not really expecting your Vespiquen to withstand a hit. You take a knockout, it gets knocked out, you get another one. That's the entire premise of the deck. A low HP Pokemon that can deal hundreds of damage in a single attack and sometimes take 2 prize cards against Pokemon GX and EX.
Now, Christopher does debate as to which Pokemon he wants to start this turn with. He chooses to go with the Tapu Lele, which has an energy already attached to it. Likely because it can always retreat for just that single energy if he needs to. That usually tells us that he does not have every piece of the puzzle yet, so he doesn't want to overcommit his board just in case he doesn't draw the right cards. A Versus Seeker from him will draw him, or will find him any supporter he'd like. He chooses the Sycamore, and that'll be 5 cards discarded here, which is not irrelevant. That one of them is at least is a Versus Seeker here, and he finds 7 additional cards. I do not see a Metagross though.
Ooh.
I don't know if I found an Ultra Ball, but I definitely don't think I found an Ultra Ball actually.
That's a whole lot of nothing. That is not what you wanted to see if you're Christopher. Already a shaky matchup and missing an opportunity here off of this Professor Sycamore for 7 cards. Didn't find Metagross GX, didn't find Ultra Ball, and he just has to pass the turn.
That was a very quick pass here from Christopher. Michael has to believe that there's a big window here for him to really take advantage in this game. If he finds what he needs, and sure enough, Rescue Stretcher is one of those cards that he needs, gets 3 Pokemon from his discard pile, shuffles them into his deck, which does lower his damage output, but brings that Flareon right back.
Yeah, that Rescue Stretcher was huge. Usually we see it used for the first part, which is just take a Pokemon for your discard pile, put it in your hand. Especially in Vespiquen when you're trying to discard Pokemon. He just shuffled 3 back in, which is effectively minus 30 damage for his Bee Revenge attack. But in this case, there were just too many Pokemon he wanted to have back. He wanted to have the Zoroark, the Vespiquen, and the Flareon all back into his deck. And he also wanted to play Professor Sycamore. And if he played Rescue Stretcher to get the Flareon back into his hand, he would have had to discard it again. So in order to keep the Flareon, he had to shuffle those 3 Pokemon back into his deck.
All right, so here's the news. We saw a Professor Sycamore from Pramawat. We just got to see his hand, and it includes 2 double colorless energies, which are very important in this matchup. But more importantly even, is that Eevee that he just laid down onto the bench. He plays a single Eevee in his deck. 1 Eevee, 1 Flareon, and 1 Vaporeon.
Actually, he does have 2 Eevee. He just runs 2 different Eevees.
2 different Eevees. Clever.
The report I got was he couldn't find 2 of the same Eevee the day of the tournament, so he had to play 1 of each.
Okay, well, either way, he does find 1 of his 2 Eevee, which is still difficult to find, and does bring it down onto the field, which means that a single Flareon from his deck at any point will deal will put a lot of pressure onto Christopher Schemanski's board, and it'll force a Lysander, honestly. If you don't Lysander that Flareon, then you're just trading KOs with your opponent taking 2 prizes and you taking a single 1.
We see the rare Intelligence Gathering on that turn, 10 damage, and he drew a card. Not exactly what you want to be doing on your 3rd or 4th turn with the Vespiquen deck, but hey, sometimes you just need to gather some intelligence.
Yeah, well, that Vespiquen was already plenty smart, didn't need to do too much, just drew 1 card. And an end from Christopher Schemanske does mean that card gets shuffled back in anyways.
We do see the first Metagross GX come into play. Rare Candy Metagross GX, and we'll see if he can pull off an attack this turn. Almost certainly a knockout will be coming as long as Christopher can find an energy card. At the very least, he can attack with Tapu Lele GX and Energy Drive for the knockout, but we'll see if he can get a second Metagross GX and start using that Giga Hammer.
Well, there it is. That second Metagross GX, just like you called it, does come down. That is 2 Metagrosses that Michael is staring down across. And again, that Eevee does threaten those Metagrosses quite a bit. But in the meantime, I mean, Christopher's got a much better board than Pram does at this point because there's so few Pokemon in Pram's discard pile. All these Pokemon on Christopher's bench, though, do mean that the Zoroark is a very threatening Pokemon in these following turns.
Yeah, right now, Mind Jack hitting for 130 damage. And if he gets the Flareon in play, that's a Mind Jack 1-hit knockout on Metagross GX. One interesting card we just saw Christopher discard with Ultra Ball is Hex Maniac. Normally, Hex Maniac is used against him, but in this matchup, I think it's going to be a crucial card against Pramawat. If he can play it when Flareon is in play, it can turn off that Flare Effect ability and effectively get rid of that Fire type on all those Stage 1 Pokemon, and maybe prevent Pramawat from getting knockouts.
So that Mind Jack does deal 130 damage right now, but because of Choice Band, he could deal 160, which would be very good against the Tapu Lele that Christopher has been attacking with right now. At the same time, Michael does need more Pokemon in his discard pile as soon as possible, because the Be Revenge is going to be one of his main paths to victory. The single Zoroark can just not take enough prizes anywhere near fast enough. Christopher Schemanske is in a pretty good board position here. Those two Metagrosses came out timely enough, even though they didn't come out as fast as he might have liked. And Pram's just kind of been doing nothing. He hasn't been able to attack for very much damage. He's had to intelligence gathering for 10 damage at some points. Really, his deck hasn't been going off, so to speak, to deal the maximum damage that sometimes it can do. And that's expected. I mean, these are Stage 1 and Stage 2 decks, so sometimes they're just not going to get off like you would hope for them to do.
There is that mighty Flareon coming into play with the Ultra Ball. I can kind of see what Christopher is doing here. You might wonder why he didn't just charge in there with Metagross GX and use Giga Hammer. It has far more HP than Tapu Lele GX. I think what he wants to do is attack with Tapu Lele GX this turn, and then on the following turn, Lysander out that Flareon and knock it out with Metagross GX. That way he doesn't have to worry about the weakness anymore. He has a 250 HP Metagross GX, and he's in a much better position, so we'll see if he can pull off that play.
Has Pram used his supporter for the turn yet? I don't think so. Nope.
Definitely not.
Yeah, and that's exactly why I was going to ask that, because if he hasn't, he can Lysander up that Metagross GX, the only Metagross with energy on it, and that'll put pressure on Schemanske to evolve his Metang into another Metagross. Otherwise, he will not be able to knock out the Flareon.
Ouch. Mind Jack for 260 thanks to that Flareon's Flare Effect. And the mighty Metagross GX falls in one attack. This whole weekend it's been just winning on the back of not being able to be knocked out in one attack, but right there, the Fire Weakness makes it a big target, and there we go. And now Christopher responding with the Lysander, so he's taken out the Flareon at this point.
The mighty Metagross does not have to be the attacker to really be relevant in this situation, because he does replace the knocked out Metagross with another one, which brings just enough energies onto this Tapu Lele for him to be able to Lysander up that Flareon and knock it out in a single hit, even though it has no energies attached to it. That is the power of Tapu Lele and the power of Metagross when combined. These are the finals in the Masters Division, and Christopher Schemanske is somehow pulling off what could definitely be considered as an upset against Michael Pramawat in this what some would consider to be a lopsided matchup because of that Flareon.
Yeah, I don't think it's that straightforward, as we're obviously seeing here. There are many ways to play around that Flareon. The Hex Maniac, simply knocking out Flareon can get the job done. So I do think it's scary for Christopher to see the Flareon. He certainly didn't want to go up against it, but certainly something he can still beat. Now, Pram missed a big opportunity here. There are 5 energy on that Tapu Lele GX. If he would have had a double colorless energy and a choice band to put on his own Tapu Lele GX, he could have responded with a knockout with energy drive. Very reminiscent of the old Mewtwo EX wars, where Mewtwo EX would just be knocking each other out. But looks like he missed, and he'll have to just settle for a Mind Jack for not nearly enough damage.
This is not looking good for Michael. He is slowly being whittled away, and honestly, he's run out of big Pokemon. Not that he had very many big Pokemon to begin with, but really the Pokemon just don't deal enough damage when you don't have enough Pokemon in your discard pile. The Be Revenge just doesn't threaten enough, and we see how Zoroark gets its damage mitigated once your opponent limits his own bench size.
It's kind of cool to see the contrast here on both sides. Michael's deck very heavily based in the XY era, Vespiquen, Zoroark, and so on, whereas Christopher's is almost entirely in the Sun and Moon era. 4 Pokemon GX on the board. It's very cool to see these 2 different eras clash, and you can see both styles of decks are viable at the moment.
Professor Sycamore from Christopher does draw him 7 additional cards. We are definitely in the late stage of this game, and honestly, this is where Christopher's deck shines. This is where he starts playing playing his deck down to a very small size, where the only cards remaining are things like, for example, Max Potion, the relevant energies in order to continue using your Giga Hammer attacks. These are the things that Pram just doesn't want to see.
So we see an Ultra Ball from Christopher. He needs to get an energy in the discard pile so he can retreat, use Geotech System twice, and Giga Hammer for the knockout. Otherwise, he would have had to leave that Tapu Lele GX in danger in the active spot. But he finds the Ultra Ball, is able to retreat one of his energy off, and we are going to see a Giga Hammer this turn to go down to 3 prize cards. This is a very even game.
That's right. Metagross does Giga Hammer the Zoroark, knocking it out. 3 prizes remaining for Christopher, 3 prizes remaining for Michael. But, I mean, at the same time, though, Michael's discard pile is starting to get to that, large size where he can start knocking out these Tapu Leles if he finds the Lysanders. This is going to be Michael's route to victory. He's not going to be able to knock out these Metagrosses because the Flareon isn't in play. But there are 2 Tapu Leles in play, one of which is heavily damaged. So a couple of Lysanders could spell the final few prizes for Pramawat here.
Yeah, he's in a bit of a dangerous position. I don't see him getting 20 Pokemon in the discard pile and a choice band to be revenged for a knockout here. And I think he really needs to end this turn. Christopher has been able to kind of choose what cards he's been having in his hand because Pram has just been playing Professor Sycamore and Lysander over and over. And if Christopher has that Karen in his hand, I think that almost seals the game. He'll be able to take a knockout, go down to 2 prize cards after that, and there will be no Pokemon in Pram's discard pile.
Did you say if or that he does, for sure?
It looked like he did. So I think Pram would love to play an N here, but there's no way for him to know that there's Karen in his opponent's hand. And I think he really wants to Lysander here. He wants to take the 2 prize cards and just kind of cross his fingers and hope his opponent doesn't have that Karen.
Yeah, I think without knowing your opponent's hand, the Lysander is the correct play here because that's a way for you to get down to a single prize. But more importantly, you have no idea that your opponent has Karen, so you don't really fear it quite yet.
Yeah, and something I wanted to note earlier, Pram decided to discard his second Eevee. And just figuring I only run 1 Flareon, why would I ever bench the second one? But I think in future games, he'll start to bench Eevee number 2. After his Flareon gets knocked out and the inevitable Karen happens, he'll have that Eevee ready on the bench to evolve right back into Flareon. This game, I think it'll be just a little bit too slow, and he won't be able to get Flareon out a second time, even after all of his Pokemon are shuffled back in. But I wonder if he'll adapt as the series progresses.
That's a very good question to ask, and we will probably get the answer as, like we're saying right now, even though Michael does go down to a single prize, Christopher's Karen is really going to put Pram in an almost unwinnable position as long as he does have that Karen, and that's really what it comes down to. It does not seem like he has it, though.
Yeah, this is an interesting spot.
I guess he does have it.
Well, he does have it, but he has the Tapu Lele GX with 110 damage on it now.
Right.
And that means if he plays Karen, all Pram needs is a double colorless on the Zoroark and a Lysander, and it's game over. He just knocks out Tapu Lele GX. If Christopher had a Max Potion there, 100% he is playing Max Potion, Karen, and the game is just about sealed. Now he has to play N, and if he doesn't draw Max Potion, there is a chance for Pramawat to work his magic and draw a double colorless and a Lysander and take game number 1.
That's very true, and upon thinking about it, I think the N is absolutely the correct play to go with. But it's still dangerous. It is very dangerous.
You can't avoid danger here.
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, all you need is a double colorless energy and a Lysander, and the game is over in Pramawat's favor, as that Tapu Lele just has too much damage on it, and your own Tapu Lele would be able to knock it out. However, it seems like there's a lone Combi, and Pramawat's hand just is not strong enough. Pramawat is forced to just let this Combi go. And now Christopher Schemanske is in a position where he can win the game if he has a choice band and the Lysander himself. There's the choice band, and there's the Versus Seeker. That Lysander will mean game, as he'll be able to Lysander up the Tapu Lele and take his final 2 prizes. knocking